Right, okay. I'm just going to do another little playthrough of one of my courses. The Canyons at Rio El Lobo this time. It's just got its handicap rating, which is great. Thanks if you've played it. Thanks especially to Eddie Vedder for he put it on the RRCC tour a while back, and that kind of gave it a big boost. And also the TGC Live guys played it the other day, which kind of give it the final kick up the butt to get it to handicap rated, which is really cool. There's a sister course to it there, the river course at Rio El Lobo, which is I'm trying to get the impression like a desert community or something like True North or Scottsdale. Okay, first hole, a little windy. My best play here will be up the left. It's only a short pitch in anyway, but I got a nice flat lie there, and I'm sort of playing across the green, so I've got a bit more green to work with, as opposed to over here, which is a bit more of an awkward lie, but there's not a lot of green to work with. And I'm also playing into the bunkers there rather than away from them. The danger being, of course, that ditch there on the left's a bit of protection, but on my layup shot there, obviously. I like this hole. Good first hole. I don't really have an excuse for doing a bad first hole, because whenever I start a new course, I always set the terrain kind of random and then work from that. So obviously I can go anywhere on the map then to start my hole, so there's no real excuse to make it a bad one. Obviously once I put that first hole in then in the green, the next tee obviously is going to dictate where I'm going to go, so I don't have as much variety, I suppose. So what I like about it most is there's no bunkers on it, fairway bunkers. I don't set out with that in mind to not use bunkers, but if I just kind of go with it. But if it happens that I don't need them, then I just personal appeal. One of my new favourite designers of the moment, I suppose, is an English gentleman called Herbert Fowler. He was part of that early 1900s group of designers. They call it the golden age of design. Basically there was a big boom in golf with the upper wealthy classes, and in turn a call for all these new courses to be built. So obviously money wouldn't have been so much of an issue back then, but I think probably more importantly would have been the availability of sort of desired land, what nowadays would be probably protected, certainly in the UK anyway. Unless your name's Donald Trump. He's not quite as renowned as some of his contemporaries. Harry Colt, Tillinghast, if you check his resume out, is pretty much second to none. And I think that's probably because they sort of took part in what I guess is the real golden age of design, and that's one of the US Open courses of today. They were all sort of built in that era. What Herbert Fowler was most admired for was his ability to blend the natural environment in with a golf course. I wouldn't have said that was his style. That pretty much would have been the done thing back then. I know Alistair Mackenzie and Charles Blair McDonald, I think it was, were big on that. But you didn't have the earth moving equipment you have nowadays, so anything that wasn't used as part of the design or to aid the design would have just been left. And also it was around that time that golf began to make the jump inland from the coast to the more predominantly silts, clay soils, but there still would have been a desire for a sandy soil. That'll always be the case. Sandy soils, the better drainage, the bigger particles of sand allow the water to go through better, as opposed to fine particles of silt and clay. And also that in turn will leach away the nutrients that coarser grasses need, so you're not so much encouraging your fine leaf grasses like bent and fescue, but more discouraging the coarse leaf grasses. So it helps sort of create a niche then for the fine leaf grasses, because they can't survive without the nutrients. And that in turn then the sandy sort of look, it gives a sort of very natural rugged look, like a windswept almost look. If you have a look at a picture of, say, Pine Valley from the early days, or Pinehurst, you'll get kind of a good idea of what I mean. I got a chance to play one of his more exclusive courses, called the Berkshire. It's one of them courses you don't get to play very often. I don't anyway. Just southwest of London, there's a area of heathland, and I think there's like a cluster of about a dozen courses there. You've got Wentworth, Sunningdale, which is regularly top 5, top 10 in Britain. Walton Heath, which is another Herbert Fowler design, held the 1981 Ryder Cup. Swinley Forest, I think Mulburn's there as well. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure why that area of heathland is there. I've had a little look online and I can't find anything about it. I think I might have to get a geological map of Britain out or something, but from the library. But I'm assuming it's glacial melt, because most area of heathland I assume is either, you know, receding sea levels, which leave behind what eventually becomes beach, and then over time, the further inland, it kind of thickens up with flora and fauna as well, lots of poop, and then eventually it creates these big, beautiful, elegant ecosystems. And then the other one would be obviously sand displacement from onshore winds, which is probably more dunes that would create. But again, to make that move inland back then, and to find this area of land, desired land so close to such an affluent area, would have been a jackpot for some of these designers. I mean, Windsor Castle's not too far away from there. Eton College, where all the princes and prime ministers went to college, is just up the road. Ascot Racecourse next door. It was evident immediately why he was so kind of revered for this style of design. I mean, all the fairways were lined with heather. I'm not sure if you class it penal design, because obviously they're not hazards. It's more what would be long rough on most modern courses. It was heather, but it was kind of fun to play, because if you did hit her into the heather, you always knew you were going to find it. Where nowadays you either don't find it, or you probably don't want to, fear of having a wrist injury. But probably what appealed to me more, I think, than the actual look of it was the design itself. I think there was only about 3 or 4 holes that had fairway bunkers on them. Green sides were different. They were big, cavernous, sort of, not really pot bunkers, but real rugged looking, with these little tufts of heather. One of the nicest things I've ever seen on a golf course, purple heather in the noses. But green sides are a bit different. They help define what's quite a small target area of the green, but not so much that, but also almost act as like a catchment area. Sort of retain the play into that area, sort of thing. And also there would be the rough would stretch out a little bit more by the green as well, because obviously if you go out in the wilderness, stay in the fairway, just smash it with maybe a 7-iron. But if you're up by the green trying to hit a 5-yard chip or something, and you've got a little stones around your ball, not only is it going to be a bit silly, but you're going to knock debris all over the green and stuff. So it just makes the game a little bit more sophisticated, I suppose, a bit more professional, for want of a better word. Nearly every hole, apart from the ones that had the fairway bunkers, which were quite strategic designs, they were lined with heather, but they would always turn, not dogleg. They would just keep like a slow turn. So the further along you went, it would kind of narrow the angle. So not only did it was good because it encouraged you to hit a shape of shot, draw or fade. But if you were trying to hit straight drives, the more you took off, the landing area had been, it was sort of squeezed the further along you went. So you did a nice drive, and you think that's just right, perfect, and then it just watch it as it just trickled too far into the rough or the heather. The tees were elevated quite a bit as well, which kind of helped the deception level of it. But yeah, it was a really wonderful course. I used to sort of think golf kind of has this habit of being a bit wet and dreamy about itself. Understandably, it's the old game, the gentleman's game, and the history involved with it and everything. But and I used to think, golden age of design and great architects. I thought, well, maybe it's a case of that. But the more I play some of these great courses, the more I realise that that's not true. It was real clever design, I guess masterful design. Third hole, bit of a disappointment this one. The idea was to have a classic heroic hole, clear this bunker, and then give you the opportunity to hit another heroic shot over them 2 bunkers to the left there, but I've got my yardage totally wrong. I can't get anywhere near them. So you hit the risk reward and you've got a layup anyway, so it's a bit of a Pyrrhic achievement. And like I said, there's no point in hitting a risk reward shot, a heroic shot for T, if you've got a layup anyway. So bit of a lame hole. Could have been good. Your best play here is down this little gap. If you do happen to muck it up, then you've only got a short pitch in downhill anyway, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem, even out of heavy rough. I find it quite funny because if you do mess up your tee shot, that could be a view of your next shot. It's quite a small green, which is pretty much universal design. The smaller the green, the shorter the hole, the smaller the green in context to par. I wouldn't really conform to that always. I think maybe a short par 4 you can reach. You maybe have a big green that might leave you a horrible putt or something, I don't know. But that's general consensus. Quite an undulating green I've made this, because I expect you to get sort of, with such a short pitch in, I expect you to get within sort of within 20 foot. If you don't, then you've got a pretty difficult 2-putt. Well, I quite like the idea of, from a real life point of view, a big wide fairway if you've got the room. So if maybe a high handicap who's struggling a bit, it might G him up a bit, encourage him. In fact, he can't really miss the fairway. But I've also made it quite undulating. So if you're a low handicapper, you can kind of weed out the best lie for sort of the next shot. I don't know if that's any kind of design merit, but I thought it sounded good anyway. This is one of the holes that the TGC Live guys touched on, a few issues. One of them was the undulation was the main one, really. I actually had to lower the green quite a few times, kept lowering and lowering it because it was sort of hitting the front edge, especially with a headwind. It wouldn't, you having to use a long iron, 4-5 iron, and the trajectory wouldn't get up and over. Well, it would, but it'd kind of be a bit lame. It'd sort of bounce its way up, and it's still not right now. And they said the TGC Live guys sort of touched on there was a few holes like that, so I've sort of taken that on board. The idea of this hole was it kind of swooped down and then up. As soon as I saw the terrain, it sort of noticed it straight away and kind of worked with it. And the idea of it in a real downhill shot and then a real uphill shot seemed pretty cool, and it looked pretty cool as well. And as for the overall undulations, that I'm not too concerned about that, because that was kind of the idea of playing up and down through the canyons, hence the canyons name. But there are quite a few holes that are just too much elevation, so duly noted for the future. Also the green, didn't really notice until Canuck said didn't notice about the shadows, but I can see now. Again, something I've taken on board is not so good. I think using maybe trees as almost a silhouette of a tree shadow on the greens in between putts, in the line of putts, I think that's quite a good idea on this game to make it a bit tougher. It seems to work well. Certainly when I play it, I find it a bit of a struggle to read the putt. So I don't know if anyone's cottoned on to the Rio El Lobo name yet, but if you have, that's Sidewinder Gulch there. I found a really good website if you're interested in old classic design and designers. I think it was called the Caddyshack.blogspot, something like that. If you type Herbert Fowler in Google, I believe it's about the 3rd or 4th one down. Basically, there was a guy, very lucky guy, who'd got to play all these great courses. Not necessarily your more famous courses, but maybe they didn't quite have the infrastructure, or they couldn't length for the course from modern day standards, whatever. But great courses nonetheless. And
he'd done a little. I think he'd done a little review on the course, and then kind of tagged the designer in each course he played, and then at the end he kind of ranked the designer, stating his favourite, course by that designer and his style. And I think Herbert Fowler was 17th in that. It was 1 to 20, and I think Herbert Fowler was 17th. And I don't pay a lot of attention to rankings and all that rubbish, but it was interesting to go through them. And he, like I said, he'd done a little sort of review on the courses, and it was interesting to go through and have a little look on maybe YouTube or the Google Images and just see the different design styles and how other people kind of judge them. I got to one guy called William Langford, who I've heard. I know he's a revered designer. I got a few golf books, and you always get these little, again, golf being a bit dreamy, these little sort of profound quotes of wisdom in between pages. I think he was ranked 15th, and there was one course he did called the Links of Lawsonia, and it was this guy's favourite piece of work by him, or favourite course by him. So I had a little look on Google Images as I was doing, and it was just horrible straight away. It was all man-made features. Slopes around greens were all sheer edge, man-made. There was one green sat like a cake on an island. It was all the way around straight edge. It just didn't appeal at all to me, who likes that sort of nice natural blending. But to most people, he was more revered than Herbert Fowler, and obviously I didn't get to play the course firsthand, so. And this guy has, so I can't really make a proper opinion anyway. But it's a bit like saying, Augusta's your favourite course, you're never going to play it, you might get there and hate it, So like I said, it's just opinion on different styles and stuff. And you could see on the website he put who the designer influenced, or was influenced by, and William Langford influenced Pete Dye, who I'll talk about in a minute. And you could see that it was pretty obvious. And I've seen occasionally over the last, say, year since the game came out, people giving not so much negative comments on other people's courses, but maybe a bit, you shouldn't do it like this, or do it like that, and that's bollocks, man. There's no set way of designing a golf course. It's a blank canvas. I'd much rather see someone do something real quirky and different than the same old S-shaped fairways with bunkers in the landing areas, because by doing it your own way from the beginning, that's how you learn your own style. You try something that may not work, so you try it, maybe a different angle on it, or the things that do get through that work, then you take them on board and improve on them and nurture them. Going back to this website, you go through these designers, look at their courses, maybe 70, 80 courses. Never heard of that one, then suddenly Colonial comes up. Right, okay. And then a bit further down the line, and Innisbrook. That's a bucket list course for me for various reasons, but and that's how they would have done it. They would have learnt their style, learnt their craft, learnt their trade or whatever. As soon as they got the right bit of land, then they would have took full advantage of it. Say by just developing your own skills, that's how you get them little tinges in styles and stuff, which I think is good all round, in any walk of life, I guess. Makes things innovative. That designer with Colonial and Innisbrook, by the way, was William Langford, ironically enough. By the way, I know people are only trying to help on the forums, help people along and stuff. I think it's just, there is a fine line between opinion, which should be constructive criticism, and then sort of just saying do it like this. Going back to Pete Dye, he's another one who kind of divides opinion, certainly amongst the golfing purists. I think he's great personally, which is probably a bit contradictory considering he's anything but natural. I think it's his creativeness though that this kind of does it. If he'd have come up to me, say I wanted a golf course built, and he'd come up to me with the idea for Whistling Straits, say where they had the PGA this year, when Jason Day won, I would have been What? 1,000 bunkers? What are you talking about? You know, one bunker on its own can run into, say, over a 10-year period, can run into the thousands, you know, with the initial build, drainage, and, you know, upkeep after that, you know, sand replenishment, all this rubbish. In his defence, mind, he is building it for a billionaire, so it's pretty much pocket money to him, but still, I've seen the plans from above, and it looks a bit ugly, it looks a bit odd. You'd be, what are you talking about, Pete? You know, and then he goes ahead and builds it anyway, and it's just awesome. It's one of the best courses that's been built in a long time, I think. Certainly modern day courses, you know, it's one of my favourite. Hole 8, a few people have said they like this hole to me. I remember building it totally against the backdrop there. I needed that as the backdrop, and so I kind of just worked the hole in with it. I was going to describe a riding hole here, but I'm not going to have time, I don't think. I'll leave that for another video. Where is he? There he is. Look, this hobo up there, look. Let's have a go. Let's whack it. It's gone well right a minute. When they messaged me to say they were going to play the course, Alice messaged me. I said it'd be a good course to pick up on faults. One of them, I've mentioned the shadows on the green and the undulations which were picked up. But another one is obviously that right hand side there, the border. I keep saying I built this course about a year ago, but it couldn't have been, because I don't think I've even had the game a year. I think probably I'm on it so much it just feels like that. But it's probably about 8 months ago, but I remember wondering if that would blend in when I actually published, but it didn't, obviously. But yeah, something to look out for. Other courses, countryside, not even kind of in the line of sight, put a few trees and get away with it. It don't look as bad, but it's not great, is it? Number 11, predictable short par 4. I said on my last video, if you make the two-shot way of playing the hole a bit tricky, a bit awkward, then it might encourage people to go for it. Particularly different. Not the best short par 4 I've done, if I'm honest. A little bit lame, but give it a go anyway. Happy with that. Who was that? Bob God. Doing well. Let's put me off a bit. See all. Hole number 12. Canuck said he quite liked this hole, the way it sort of steps down, split fairway. I'm going to hold my hand up now though and say that I didn't actually mean that. When I laid it down, it didn't show up by the other fairway, so I had to kind of work around it. I actually prefer it when a fairway kind of swoops down away from you. I quite like that look. So it weren't intentional, but it don't look too bad. But if it does happen to you, I've learned a way. Not learned, actually, someone on the forums I read has figured out a way of doing it. It's if you go into the sculpt tool, the red one, flatten, and then if you maybe the soft brush over the area that you're trying to get to appear, and just nudge it up a bit, and it'll slowly appear. I'm pretty sure you can lower it again then back to what it was, and it'll still stay there. I'm not quite sure actually, but yeah. This hole is, if you've played my 15th at the Rose of Kohala, I've done a video for that as well. It's almost exactly the same hole. It's something I call repetitive design that I've only really noticed doing this video. The idea of this hole is almost playing to as close as you can to the edge as if you're sort of peeking over a cliff. and I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. I'm sure all the top designers have like templates of holes in their head, I guess, but I'm not particularly keen on it. I prefer something a bit more fresh, but I suppose at least I'm aware of it. 15, possibly my favourite hole on the course. Not a bunker in sight. Sensible play probably up the left there, a bit of a blind shot in, or maybe use that camber there to bring you rain a bit, or do what I'm going to do and go straight over the corner. Give yourself a nice flat lie in then, hopefully. Some of the rough, heavy rough, and etc. was isn't very well done either. It's another thing to look out for, and try and keep it nice and uniform. 17. It's possibly the most disappointing hole I've ever done. It was the one hole, the only hole I had in my mind before I started the golf course. And so whenever I start a course, I do the first hole, and then I'll either go off in order doing a few more, or something else I like to do, and that's route the holes out, see the holes and then kind of route them out. And I did that with this course all the way to 16 because I wanted to build the canyons up either side. And so I left these last two holes. I could see they played back the clubhouse, left them, and then when I finished, I pretty much finished that side of the course to 16, and when I got here I realised my yardages were way over. So I had to stretch this hole out maybe 100 yards more than it originally I wanted to. The idea was to play as, you see up by the green, it goes up at here. The idea was to have that, almost where that ridge runs along the left there, was going to be fairway, almost dropping down to the green. I think it would have been a really cool hole, but, and in hindsight, if I'm honest, I would have, you know, I like to preach a bit of realism on this game, as if, you know, I like to take it from a real life point of view, so I couldn't go having half a mile walks between tees if I wanted to do that. So I think the clubhouse was about a mile away from, if I worked out in yardage, about a mile away from the first tee. It just, you know, said it just didn't seem right, but in hindsight I wouldn't have worried too much about it. You see the way it splits there. Also, another bit of amateurish design. If you can see the, it's kind of not too bad, I guess, but it's sort of rounded there. Rather, I would have made that a bit more jaggedy. And also, I don't know if you've got a climbing rope in your golf bag, because you can get up there any other way, I don't think. Maybe clamber up, but yeah, a little bit. So really disappointing. Really disappointing. Aesthetically, it's pretty good though. That's about the only thing I can say for it. Again, bit of a lame, boring layup. Finally, hole 18. Another one of my favourite holes. It's quite funny with this course because most courses, the par 3s and the par 5s tend to be the sort of standout signature holes. But with the exception of 8, I think they're pretty bland on this course. With the par 4s, I think are quite strong and sort of make the course. I got the idea for this hole off two courses, Wentworth and Banff Springs in Canada. That's another bucket list course. But you see the fairway tilts right to left there. What with them two courses, you have woodland up the right hand side, and also the green is sort of like a medium dogleg to the right. So the closer to the top end of the fairway you get, bearing in mind if you do go in the woods, it's obviously a chip out. Not only are you going to have a better angle into the green and possibly a flatter lie, the further you do play away from the trees to the left there, bail a bit, the more you've got to come back across the fairway if the green was to the right hand side. So there may be a club or two's difference in distance, and also you'll have a bit more of a hanging lie. Obviously this fairway's straight, so what I've done, I kind of rumpled up the left hand side here, and also up at the green that slopes left to right, so when you play into it, you're playing onto a downhill lie.